views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olsen.
Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. Whether you're listening north, south, east, west, what's morning, afternoon, evening, you're with us on After Hours AM, and I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, and right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
And the beautiful...
And Dr. Clarissa Cole.
I was going to say, the hot redhead.
I forgot to say and. It's still not automatic.
No, the sexy redhead. That single-handedly stopped the dam breakage.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
okay.
She put her finger in the dike.
She did, of humanity.
Oh, that sounds so bad on so many levels.
Doesn't it, though?
Yeah.
Aren't you the little Dutch boy?
Did it stink when you were done?
Oh, God. It has been an absolute nightmare. Like, you know, when it comes to sort of places that, I'm guessing like maybe Hawaii or places like that need to evacuate on a regular basis, so maybe they do it more.
Yeah, for all the listeners that maybe have been under a rock, that haven't heard or kept up with current events as far as the California news, which is most of us, because let's just face it, California's a bunch of whiners sometimes. But they are currently, where you are, Northern California, are having a dam breach. That's right, a dam breach is going on near where you are living. What's the chaos level right now where you are?
Chaos level's been brought down to maybe like a 3, which is great because over the weekend it was like a level 10. So in case you don't know, when there's an emergency in your area, they have these things called reverse 911 calls. Did you guys know about this?
Sure, they'll call you up and say, get the hell out of your house.
Dude, I have never... A robocall from a, computerized person saying, this is not a drill. Please evacuate immediately.
Pack your crap and
terrifying.
hit the road there, Jack, because there's bad stuff coming your way.
Oh, my gosh. And so then, so what they did was Oroville is a city that is above me, north of me, about 35 miles. Oroville's dam is the largest in the entire country, apparently.
Yes, that's what I heard. That's a hell of an impressive dam.
Well, I didn't know, right? I moved up here. I had no idea. And
Sure.
And they said, there's a lot of water this year, and we're using this thing called a spillway. That's what happens when the dam gets full. They use a spillway to, get rid of some of that water. The spillway broke, so we're going to use the emergency spillway. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, things be peachy.
And then about 24 hours later, they said, that emergency spillway that we were using, it's going to fail, like probably within the next 60 minutes.
Well,
leave.
Yeah, most things the government do, and they did build this dam, fails. Let's just be honest at some point. And it didn't surprise me. I mean, they were told 10 years ago that, hey, by another group, an environmental group going, hey, there's something wrong with your dam over there.
Yeah, 12 years ago, they were told, if you ever have to use that emergency spillway, it's probably not going to work. And
don't.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't use that. Whatever you do, do not use an emergency spillway.
Right, so the city of Oroville and then my city, the Yuba City, Marysville, all these cities got these robocalls saying, please leave immediately. This is not a drill. And that's about 200,000 people. Now, what the streets are like at rush hour just normally, right?
Yeah, they're nuts. They're crazy.
No, there was no, even if I had wanted to leave, There is no way. There were cars that sat in front of the road, one of the main thoroughfares outside of my house. The cars moved about like the length of the park that I live near in 3 hours.
So what they're going to do is sit in traffic and drown in their cars is what the plan is.
And I'd rather die in my house and watching a good television
show.
Sure, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm not getting in my car and sitting in traffic. 20,000 people, 20,000 vehicles ran out of gas on the road.
Did you witness any surfers?
No. What happened was, that would have been cool. No, the dam actually did not break like they said it was going to.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear that did not break because you were able to be with us because, in fact, all week we're talking with you and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be there or not because, we got this dam breaking over here. So, I just might not make it. Sorry, guys. Like, Eric and I are like, yeah, just be safe, all right? You don't even have to apologize. We get it.
Well, the tanks, the police tanks, that was pretty cool, I gotta say.
Tanks are awesome.
Yeah, they are.
I want one for Christmas.
That'd be cool. Then you wouldn't have to worry about all the cars. You could just go right over.
That's right.
Were they filled with water, or were these the tread tanks?
These were the tread tanks, and they
toys.
had, like a couple cops standing outside of them, basically. Oh, this is good. By the edge of the bridge, like, you will not pass. That's
oh, Gandalf. You will not pass. Wow. So those cops are sitting around going, oh, crap, we're going to get washed away, ain't we?
Yeah, no, exactly, because they had to guard two. So there's 4 main roads that go out of town where I live. Well, actually, 2 roads in, obviously opposite directions. 2 of those directions were blocked off by police tanks.
By chance, was the Krispy Kreme donut shop the first place to get sandbagged by the law enforcement?
I don't think we have a Krispy Kreme here.
Oh, you are deprived, aren't you?
I know. We have some other local shops that are not bad.
Yes, but they sandbagged the local donut shop right away. I guarantee it. I was there once in Fargo when they were flooding out, and my Lord, I couldn't believe it. Literally, the donut shops were sandbagged before anything. I'm not even joking.
Wow.
It was funny as hell. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Wow. Do we really need to save the Royal Fork over there? Come on. Who cares?
Well, we didn't even get sandbags because if the Oroville Dam were to break, Oroville, the city of Oroville, would be under, according to FEMA maps, 100 feet of water.
Oh, you would have been your own ocean.
I live in would be 10 feet of water.
Oh, they'd be their own ocean, is what you're saying.
They would. They would be Ocean Oroville, and I would be under 10 feet of water, which is what, to the roof line of the house?
Why not?
And 1,000 years from now, they would think you were Atlantis.
That's right. Exactly what's going on up there at Antarctica, rather. They're finding all sorts of cool stuff, aren't they, Eric?
Well, rumor has it from our friend, our guest last Thursday night, former FBI agent, that yes, things are very much not as they appear to be in Antarctica, and they're finding all kinds of ancient artifacts leading to the thought that there was a civilization down there, and if there was, either they were really, really cold, or it was really, really long time ago.
Well,
or both.
It could have been both. Who knows, really, to be honest with you. I mean, that would have been cool to find it. And by the way, we're having him on again because by popular demand of a lot of listeners, we're going to do a 2-hour special all about the smiley face killer that is actively murdering people. I mean, as early as last year, they found murdered people. And, of course, he is one of the primary investigators when he was an FBI agent of that case.
Wow.
Zounds. Yes. Well, that'll be next Wednesday, right?
Yeah, it'll be next Wednesday.
True crimey.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of cool. What do you know about the smiley face there, Clarissa Cole? What do you know? Have you ever studied it?
I've looked into it, but I'm going to have to do, I'm admitting it, I'm going to have to do a lot of studying this next week because a lot of the stuff that I've read is very equivocal. You know what I mean? It's like, this is really, some people are like, yeah, it exists. Yeah. And other people are way in the other direction. So it's interesting.
It will be interesting. And then tonight, of course, we have Jeff Mudgett on the show. And he is the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes. Yes, that H.H. Holmes. The one that had a death castle over there in Chicago? Yeah, that's the guy we're talking about. He's kind of nasty critter. And he's going to come on the show and talk about how he found out he was related to H.H. Holmes, and also how he thinks and how he has evidence to the effect that H.H. Holmes may have been Jack the Ripper. So he'll be on top of the next hour. You're not going to want to miss that. That's going to be pretty darn cool.
Wait, so like if you were related to a serial killer, you think that just wouldn't come up in like regular family?
Well, you would think it would. They'd be like, oh yeah, by the way, I just didn't, I found out that we're related to a serial killer. I'd be like, what are you even talking about? What do you mean serial killer? Yeah, we're related to H.H. Holmes. You would think you would have known that a long time ago, but evidently, as he tells it, and he'll tell it again, of course, it comes out, it was a bit of a buried family secret for a long time.
Well, that is not surprising.
No.
Let's face it. That would not be something necessarily that you'd put on your job resume.
It all depends on
what kind of family you're from, though.
Well,
there's
that
some
is
families
true.
that'll be like, "Hey,
hi, this is why we killed baby, because we're related to H.H. That's right, carrying on the family tradition." Then you have the normal people out there that are like, "Oh my lord, wow, how did I come from that?"
That's a significant part of Jeff's story, though, is at least in his book, which is partly fictionalized. He says that the spirit of H.H., the curse of H.H. Holmes, for a time anyway, he is very concerned that it is taking over his mind.
Really? Yeah, he was saying something when we were talking back and forth that was something that he was legitimately afraid of, because he actually, and we can't give up too much, otherwise no one will listen. But you're going to want to listen at the top of the hour because it is really interesting, and of course we're going to find out why he believes that H.H. was Jack the Ripper and a few other things along the way. So you're not going to want to miss that at all. Again, Jeff Mudgett, man, it'd be great. He wrote the book Bloodstains.
And, to point out though, like just the fact that his last name is Mudgett, right?
Yep.
And then when you look back in the history of the other part of H.H. Holmes's family, the other wife that he took, I mean, yes, illegally, when he got to the Illinois area, Murda.
Yeah.
She kept the last name Holmes, as did Lucy, their daughter, the rest of their lives, even though they lived through this trial. So, I mean, there's some pretty strong stock in that family on both, sides of that coin. So I'm impressed.
Yeah, very, very cool. Very, very cool. So we're going to find out more about that. But now we've talked about the dam and we talked about the guest, I suppose we should get to those true crime headlines, and those things that we talk about. Now, there was a break in the case on the child that was actually the first child to be featured on a milk crate, right? That the milk carton. And why don't you tell us about that?
Well, Eric sent me over that story this week because to be honest,
I rule.
You do rule, and honestly, it's like that's one of those cases that most people have kind of forgotten about, and yet at the same time, when you bring it up again, like, I mean, Joel, Eric, I remember seeing that when I was a kid, that milk carton. Do you guys remember that?
I do remember that. I remember when the milk carton was around, when you'd see those sad faces on the milk cartons, and then your mother would say, "If you don't stick by me, you're gonna be on the milk carton," and then of course she'd use that as a weapon to scare me. But that's what I remember more than anything. Yeah, exactly. She'd throw it at me across the
milk at you.
Yeah, exactly. I curse you with the milk carton. But no, absolutely, I do remember that, and it's been a powerful tool. I mean, it really has. It's helped a lot of people find kids.
Well, in this case, since his name, the little boy's name was Etan Patz, right? Mm-hmm. And he was on the back of this milk carton, the very first one in 1979. And so before 1979, it's not like kids didn't get abducted and bad things happened to them. But it wasn't like every home in America was aware of it.
Well, I wonder who thought the idea of the milk carton.
I know. That actually was a pretty amazing thing. It changed our culture.
Maybe it was the dairy administration going, we got to do something to make people want to buy milk. Maybe
not in Wisconsin. We were good.
Maybe if we just put these sad children on there, they're missing, people want to buy the milk.
Well, okay, so like getting back to what happened. So he was from New York, right? Like you think of New York.
Yeah.
It's like big bad New York City. And he was only 6 years old when I guess he'd been begging his mom to walk to the bus to go to school, which by himself. which was two blocks away from it. I mean, 2 blocks away, people, you can still like see that far, you know?
Yeah.
Two blocks away in the 70s. And she was like, you know what? I was a little worried about it, but I said, yeah, go ahead. So Etan walks the 2 blocks to the bus. He never makes it to the bus, never makes it to school. They never find out what happens. And that was back in 1979. But there has been a break in the case. And Eric, since you sent me the story, I feel like you should be the person to break this case.
To bust it wide open?
Bust
Yes.
it, man.
You mean me in the New York Times, you mean?
Bust the story
Just
wide
you.
open.
Yes.
Yes, terrible, terrible case, as you just said. And what I wanted to put in there, just an aside about the milk carton, what that really was among, I'm not going to say it was the first time, but it was among the first times that people started kind of flipping the media around and crowdsourcing. Think of how
really
different a
was the early
mentality that
days.
was. You know, it's like led to citizen journalism and the internet and blogging and on and on and on and on and on.
Sure.
And where we are today. But think about it then. It was so completely the opposite of the normal flow of information. It was asking citizens to participate. So, and putting it on a surface that was, well nigh ubiquitous. So that was really quite a genius move. So, yes, Pedro Hernandez, shown in court here from the New York Times article in 2012, confessed to luring poor 6-year-old Etan into the basement of a basically shop, for lack of a better word, and attacking him in 1979. He was found guilty Tuesday of murder and kidnapping. So finally, after all these years, decades, the poor parents have some closure. But yeah, like Clarissa was saying, this really changed forever our mentality about safety of children. And it was so shocking. And the milk carton approach was so successful, which was in and of itself kind of a form of brainwashing. It was saying, look, everyone needs to be on the lookout and at all times, and they're never safe. And you as parents must always, without exception, have an eye, at least one eye on them. And, it's something we kind of just take for granted these days. And you hear people kind of my age and older talking about, when I was a kid, we used to all go play in the backyard. We'd disappear in the morning and we'd come back at midnight and no one gave it a second thought.
Yeah,
all that
true.
Good stuff. So all of that changed dramatically with this case. And it's very sad. And it just shows, there's no such thing, as an unsolved case, as long as people stay engaged, as long as people are interested, as long as someone's looking into it.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of cold cases within the last year have come to fruition as far as find out who it is. Like, look at Jacob Wetterling case has actually been closed as well. And no one ever thought that was going to get solved and closed, and now this one. So that's really encouraging that these cases that have been mothballed, I guess, for a better word, lack of a better term, are actually getting the spotlight again, and they're being solved.
What's kind of very sad to me, though, and it honestly kind of got me a little riled up after I read this article, was that it was Mr. Hernandez, the convicted person in this case. It was his ex-brother-in-law that came forward to detectives, and he also had an ex-wife that had found a bunch of pictures and newspaper clippings of Etan in their closet while they were married. And he had even told his ex-wife before they married, this is a long, long time ago, that he had killed a boy. She didn't ask any questions about it, but she was told that. And it took them 40 years to come forward. It's not that I'm not happy that they came forward. I am, but 40 years, why? Why?
Well, yeah, why would you keep that to yourself all those years? And how can you live with yourself with that knowledge?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's like I don't know how people could live with themselves. How could you look in the mirror or at a milk carton or walk down the street of that neighborhood and not be just racked with guilt?
Well, I don't understand it. And then another story that has been out there, and I think, Eric, you're another one responsible for sending this, is
shucks.
the young lady that was chained, basically, in her own words, like a dog. What happened with that case? And we all know what we're talking about because she was on Dr. Phil, most of us. But really, what's the nuts and bolts of that case?
Clarissa, whip it on us.
Well, that is not one that I had prepped right now, so I think you're going to have to do the honors, Eric.
Well, I was ill prepared for that one. Let's see. Where did I?
Wasn't she 14? I want to say she was 14 or 15 years old, and she was
all right. Let me do it here.
She was being used. She was being
go.
pimped by like an uncle or something. That was my memory, but.
Joel's gonna have to bust this one out.
Last year, Kayla Brown spent 2 months chained at the neck and ankles in a metal storage crate as a prisoner of South Carolina real estate broker Todd Copeland. I do believe I am pronouncing that correctly, the last name. When she was found in November, the Spartanburg County sheriffs wondered aloud what kind of person could keep another person chained up like a dog. This is just nonsense, they said. Nobody could be that cold-hearted to do that to another human being or individual. Brown told police she did odd cleaning jobs for Copeland, and that she and her boyfriend, Charles Carver, were on the job when Copeland suddenly turned violent. One such job turned ugly quickly. Brown said she told police the realtor had shot her boyfriend cold blood and kept her captive for the following 2 months. Initially, police had limited information about what was happened during this, but then after they recovered Brown, she was able to tell them the entire story. In 3 months since Copeland has confessed to 6 other murders, including this unsolved 2003 I cannot even pronounce that word right now.
Quadriplegic.
There we go. Homicide known as Superbike murders. Why would it be called Superbike murders of quadriplegic? Okay, I'm just trying to process that. The only explanation for his most recent crime came from an interview with his mother, who insisted her son had murdered Carver because he got nasty and got smart mouth. That's a good reason to kill somebody.
You could wash somebody's mouth out.
Exactly, and then locked up Brown because he was scared and didn't want her to call the police.
Everybody's scared of their mama.
Well, exactly. Well, no, the lady got locked up because she was afraid that she was going to call police. This is the girl. This is the girl. This is the girlfriend of the guy that he offed. This week, Brown revealed the torture of those 2 months, and really what he says in quotations is he was waiting for Stockholm syndrome to kick in.
Oh God, I'm sorry I laughed. Wow.
Okay, now maybe you have to tell me.
A little information is dangerous. Oh my God.
What exactly? I know what Stockholm. I think I know what Stockholm syndrome is. That's when you're sympathetic to your captors. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right.
And that's not necessarily something that happens right away. It just doesn't kick in.
It's not something that happens to everyone either. No. People get the idea that it happens to everybody, but it does not. Some people, I mean, I think it's always in your best interest to pretend to be friendly to your captor.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But furthermore, for more information, as he was waiting for quote-unquote Stockholm syndrome to kick in, therefore they could become a couple.
Wow.
Copeland had had no intentions of letting Brown go voluntarily. He informed her that she was his property. She said that she really did not believe that she would ever be walking out of that storage crate alive. But he did let her out here and there to go to the store in hopes that she would fall in love with him. Brought her McDonald's.
Another thing that's really weird to me is that this guy's a real estate agent, right? He sold people in the community their homes, right? Like, what was he like? This has a nice basement.
Well, exactly. And then over time, though, she says over time, Brown became his confidant, the captor's confidant, and he would brag to her about how many people he was killed, how easy it was for him to kill, and that she again was his object. and if he felt like it, he could kill her at any moment.
God, did he read about previous killers and then just do the exact same thing?
Yeah,
really?
I have no idea. And about a month into her kidnapping, Brown said she realized that he meant it when he said he would kill her, that he did not have any problems. In quotations, killing you would be no more harmful to me than killing an ant, unquote.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe him, but yeah,
because I told
he kept
him
her captive.
She goes on. She says, I told him that you're nothing but a serial killer, and you would pay one day for the crimes that you have done. And evidently, he came to an end, of course, when police got tipped off about her being chained up and being held captive. Police came in, and it says that Brown even considered the captive, considered committing suicide to escape her nightmare, which is horrible, quite honestly. That's just horrible. But police did save her and took the captor into custody. And now he is, of course, awaiting trial.
Yeah.
So
well done, Joel.
Well,
good thing we can count on you.
Yeah, I'm just bumbling over my notes here because generally I'm not the guy that reads all this cool stuff. So hey, I'm glad I was able to do that. But anyhow, that is that in a nutshell. And of course, anyone that has any information, because I did touch base, of course, with Ronnie the Bear. And he was curious if any tips have come in since he was on the show, and no one has come forward to me, but he did also mention that he's had a few calls due to our show, that our show did generate a few phone calls. So that is good. Thanks, guys. Keep listening. Keep being out there. And if you guys do think of it and you know anything, absolutely give them a call over there. And the more information, the better. And any crime, really. If you see something, quite honestly, folks, say something.
Well, exactly. And you're just talking about the Colehep case. If that has not been adjudicated yet, which, he hasn't gone to trial yet, if he did murder as many people as he says he did, there are other people that were affected by him. So if you have information, call the cops and don't be afraid to testify. Get this guy locked up for a good long time.
I mean, how many times do serial killers or killers in general inflate their numbers of carnage?
They do for sure. But it's it's part of it too. Is if you have any suspicions, you want to bring those forward. Just
absolutely. But I mean, like H.H. Holmes. If you listen to the Wax recording, the wax cylinder confession. My God, he was killing everybody but the mailman.
And there's no way that many people could. I mean, I know a lot of people could have gone missing, but no, his numbers are way.
Well, and some people have actually estimated he might have killed over 1,000 people, which I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, mostly just because of the whole disposal
issue. He was selling it. Now, we'll get into that, of course, top of the hour, but he was selling the bodies as cadavers, but you couldn't bring in entire families.
No.
Here's the dog even. There you go. You can have that too. And
my goodness, how industrious would you have to be?
Well, he did build a whole castle dedicated to one thing.
That's true. He and the Nazis, man.
Well, he didn't build the castle. He hired people and then didn't pay them.
But he just, we'll get, like I said, we don't want to give too much, but we did profile him at length. Well, what about 6-8 months ago? And so, if, it's still up for download. If anyone would like to listen to that show after the show, of course, feel free to download that and you get the complete 100% rundown of, if we do miss anything, who he was.
But that, the part that you were talking about with the media, the fact that this was one of those cases that really did break open that idea of the media having, because they had so much access to Holmes in the jail.
Well, they did.
Like how media changes everything. That does lead into one of the other stories that I have.
All right. Well, we'll get into that right after the break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Your true crime headlines coming from the beautiful and talented red-headed fireball herself, Dr. Clarissa Cole. Hey, if you're catching this edition of After Hours AM on podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to After Hours AM. And for all you iTunes listeners, make sure you rate and review After Hours AM.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
Our hidden cameras caught Mrs. Helen Grouse of Columbus, Ohio, in the act of shoplifting at an A&P store. We asked other shoppers if they'd be deterred from shoplifting if we punished Mrs. Grouse by killing her. Let's listen.
Excuse me, ma'am, have you ever shoplifted?
Well, yes, I have.
Oh?
Yeah, on occasion I snitched a can of salmon or a jar of artichoke hearts.
Well, let me ask you this.
What?
Here's a woman we just caught shoplifting.
Oh, boy.
Now, if we were to punish her by killing her, right now, would that convince you not to shoplift?
I don't know. It's kind of an impulse sort of thing, and I really doubt if you'd kill her. I mean, I'd have to say I'd probably shoplift again.
I see. Well, watch this. Now, what have we done?
Well, you just shot her in the head.
And would you say that she's dead?
Well, her whole head is blown off. Yeah, she's dead all right, yeah.
Now, let me ask you again. Do you think we've convinced you not to shoplift?
Well, I have to say I'd never shoplift again.
Why do you say that?
Well, you just proved to me that you'd kill someone if they shoplifted. I saw it with my own eyes.
You're not just saying that.
No, I'm really convinced.
You won't change your mind?
Nope, I'll never shoplift again.
At A&P, we won't stop trying till we make you say...
You're listening to After Hours AM, the best in alternative talk radio. Got a question, comment, guest suggestion, or just want to say hi? Contact us at afterhoursam@gmail.com. That's afterhoursam@gmail.com. Want to call the show and be interactive? That's easy. The number is 612-326-6874. Again, the number is 612-326-6874. And thank you for listening.
What's happening, hot stuff?
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
All right, Dr. Cole, you got some really cool stories in the hopper. I know I previewed them, and I'm chomping at the bit. Some of these are actually really, really humorous. And, of course, they can go to Twitter, can't they, and follow what you're doing?
Yes, you can. You can go to author_Clarissa on Twitter, and you can find all of the stories there. I try to kind of line them up so that you can just kind of go up the line and look at the stories. And the first one, the reason I included this one, seriously, I mean, the rest of them are somewhat more entertaining, in a humorous way. Her name is Heidi Hemmett, and I included it because of how intimately H.H. Holmes, who we'll talk about later,
sure,
was connected to the media. And Heidi Hemmett she used to be a broadcaster on Fox News.
Really?
So, yeah, so she's a media personality, somebody that you see every day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you turn on your TV and you get to feel like you know these people. It's that sort of.
Yes, Heidi Hemmett on Dangers That Caused her to quit.
Yeah, very pretty girl, and
she's a cutie.
She quit doing Fox News as a main anchor because of a stalker.
See, now if you quit doing something like that in the public eye because of a stalker, doesn't the stalker win?
I totally get what you're saying. So there was a piece of me that's like, oh, stalker wins. But then there was another part of me that recognizes that stalking as a crime is not punished in this country. It is not. I cannot tell you how many cases that I have personally been involved with where someone a victim ended up dying because there was nothing done. Well, I mean, I can't tell you how often you can report stalking, and the police always say the same thing. This is what they say. I'll tell you because I myself was a victim at one point. The police say, let us know when something happens. Mm-hmm. Like what? When there's a knife sticking out of my chest?
From the grave?
Well,
Should I phone you from the grave?
Well,
from my slab in the morgue?
I guess I understand in some ways the law enforcement side of it. You cannot arrest someone for what they might do.
Well, you can arrest someone for terroristic threats against the government, so why can't you arrest someone for this? I disagree.
No, what I'm saying is that's what they're thinking with you or me or anyone that doesn't matter, quote unquote, doesn't matter, calling about a stalker, and they're in their minds, well, until he does something, we can't do anything about it, so, you might as well just be pissing in the wind.
And yet, if I were to write, screw you, I hope you all die on my check to AT&T every month, I would be arrested immediately.
Well, you would be because that is AT&T and everybody loves AT&T.
Right.
Why would you?
And the other thing is that most stalking victims are women, just like victims of rape. The ones that come forward are often women, so who cares?
I have been stalked by women.
Ooh. How did that go for you?
Well, let's see, I married her, one of them. But no, I'm
almost
just
choked on my water there.
Joking, of course. No, it was because of like Eric and I and you we're on radio, and there's a certain amount of people.
I married a stalker.
That kind of think in their minds they have a relationship with you because they hear you and you're so nice, and they think you'd be that nice in person. I have been confronted in public by listeners that are just a little too eager to get to know me.
Interesting. Yeah, like the only time I've ever really, had this issue was when it was an ex-patient that was also delusional, and he actually had murdered someone in the past that he had been stalking. So, it was a little concerning, but
generally my stalkers
didn't do anything about it though.
Generally my stalkers have been harmless, more or less. You know what I mean? Until it turns into like fatal attraction crap, and then I'm out.
Well, exactly. So with this person, he was outright threatening her and having because she wasn't returning his affection, right?
Yeah.
And so he's having fantasies about killing her, and of course he's in mental health treatment too. So he told his psychiatrist, and I want to point this out to the entire listening public, just because it's a stupid psychology thing that I feel I have to tell people about. The article that I posted a link to says the psychiatrist broke HIPAA laws to inform the victim.
Wow.
That's not true. That's not true.
Now explain why that's not true, I guess. I mean, really, because HIPAA laws are privacy laws for your health. They
are, and HIPAA laws are very stringent, and I absolutely agree with abiding by all the laws of HIPAA. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. passed a law called the Tarasoff Law, and that was based on a girl who was, her last name was Tarasoff, who was a victim of a man who was also obsessed with her, was stalking her. And he told his psychiatrist or psychologist many, many times that he dreamt of killing this girl. And then, of course, he went out and did it. But because the confidentiality laws, even before HIPAA, were so stringent, he couldn't do anything about it.
No.
So they passed a law called the Tarasoff Law that says if somebody is in danger, like an identifiable party. So if someone came into my office and said, I want to murder that Joel Sturgis, that's an identifiable person.
Well,
right?
I'd
Joel
say
Sturgis.
get in line, buddy.
Well, and that's the other part of the law. So the Tarasoff Law says it has to be an identifiable person, and the clinician has to deem the threat as real.
Question, what about clergy then? Because when let's just say you're going to confession, that has been called under fire several times by law enforcement as well.
As it should be.
Same thing?
As it should be.
Okay.
You should, if you claim, oh man, people are going to hate me for this. If you claim to be religious, why are you not answering to the moral higher power, which says, yes, you're forgiven, but after this, we're also going to go to the police station because part of atonement is penance.
Yeah.
So let's go do that.
But that's not how it really works now, is it, Clarissa?
It's sad that it's not how it works because it should.
I'm total agreement with you. I really am.
I've had people confess things to me, and that has always been how I deal with it. Every single time, 100% of the time, I've said, I'm so glad you told me, and we're going to talk about it more in therapy, but right now, we're going to call, whoever it is that we need to call, and I'm going to sit here with you while you confess it.
Wow.
And to date, no one has said no.
Really? Yeah. Wow, no one's ran out of your office going, screw you, lady, I'm out of here.
No, and this has generally been in cases that, just so people know, it's generally been in cases of child abuse where they admit that they are abusing a child.
Yes. Now, what if the child's abusing the parent? Like my 3-year-old, man, she is so mean to me.
You gotta lock her up.
I'm gonna go start complaining about that. She beats the tar out of me some days. It's like, oh, come on.
Some people think a leather belt is enough with a 3-year-old, but I think maybe you should put studs in the belt.
Oh no! She beats on me. She beats on me. I'm not saying I beat on her. She beats on me, and my 1-year-old is even worse.
But do you roughhouse with her? Like, where's she getting this idea?
Oh, she's got a big brother. She has a big brother.
Oh, there you go.
She has a big brother, and she likes to roughhouse. She's at that age to where it's rough and tumble time. And my 1-year-old son, he's getting there too. He likes a little rough and tumble, and so my Lord, she's at that perfect height. Problem is, she's right at that perfect height to hit you right in the nutsack.
All right, you want to know what we used to do? I don't know. Are statutes of limitations up on?
Yeah, you're in the clear, man.
I think so. I think you're good.
30 years.
7 years past the age of majority. You should be good.
Okay, you're good.
Oh, thank goodness. All right, so my 2 older ones were the ones who, just for whatever reason, were just screaming fools for this. The younger 2, I don't know. Something's wrong with them. They have better sense.
And they're quiet.
So when the kids, the older 2, when they were quite small, although it probably at least went till they were 4, maybe, so they weren't that small. I don't know how it got started. Obviously, it was my fault when they were, quite little, not infants. But anyway, it started with me picking them up and creating a secondary ring of protection on the bed with pillows. Okay.
Oh boy.
So you got the bed itself, and then you had this fairy ring of pillows.
Ring of pillows.
I would toss them into the fairy ring on the bed, and as time went on, they would make me back up farther.
Okay.
And farther. And farther, and we finally got to the point when they were just about the perfect projectile size.
Lawn darts.
So big enough to really carry the enough mass to really cut through the air, but not big enough that I couldn't pick them up and toss them. I mean, I was throwing them like 15 feet.
Wow, man, you're really whipping those kids.
I was.
You want to talk about the exercise? I mean, it's like tossing a medicine ball. Okay, 15 feet, and those kids, man, they knew how to get in perfect aerodynamic position. They look like paper airplanes flying through the air with their arms and legs back, and they're
screaming, "Dad, throw me!"
Faces out. And when it started, what reminded me of all this, it was called. Because they were really little when it started, it was called Peek Up, Daddy, Peek Up. It's pickup.
Yes.
Peek up. And there are pictures. There's incriminating evidence with a child 6 feet off the ground. Nothing underneath them, flying through the air, and you don't see me tossing them, and you don't see the bed. You see this child suspended in midair, 6 feet off the ground, aerodynamically proportioned. It was crazy. And of course, my wife, my first wife, who's certainly a wonderful mother, no question about that, she kind of grew along with it. You know what I'm saying? It was incremental. It got longer and longer and farther, and always heard the kids laughing and screaming, crying, not crying, laughing and hysterically and being wonderfully, So finally, though, what happened was one of them bounced out of the fairy ring and off the bed.
Game over.
Oh, no.
And landed with a considerable thud.
Oh,
in fact,
no.
Thud that the neighbors from below came running upstairs. My God, what happened? And they see the child.
What is wrong with you?
Sprawled out, upside down, head up against the wall, upside down, going yabbity. So that was kind of the end of it. So there you go.
Well, my life, just to throw this in here really quick, and then we'll move on. My life took a very scary turn for, I want to say the better in some ways and worse for others. My 1-year-old took his first steps today. And so it will not be long before he's running. And man, oh man, terror will truly begin. But, pray for me, folks. Pray for me. Okay, next headline I see in front of me, and it really grabbed my eye right away. Judge bans teen from sex before marriage. What the? How do you enforce that?
God, do I love this story, and for all the wrong reasons. An Idaho judge has ordered a 19-year-old okay, think about this, folks. A 19-year-old man, all right, not to have sex with anyone.
Yeah, he's already twitching. He's twitching.
Yeah,
no kidding. Before he marries, as part of his sentencing. Now, okay, this is going to really tick you off. His sentence was for the statutory rape of a 14-year-old.
Oh, you're kidding me. That's the sentence he gave him? There's no sex before marriage?
Yeah, 14 and 19 is too big of a gap.
He should have been, pretty much made an example of I know.
Oh, well, clearly this Idaho judge thought he was making an example
no sex.
of him.
He'll be married by Friday. This guy. I was 19 once. I know I was 19 once. I remember the hormones going, oh my God. He'll be married by the weekend.
Well, this kid said I hope that he's exaggerating. This kid said he's already had 34 sexual partners.
Are you kidding me? Wow, man. Wow, 34 sexual partners?
At 19. Man. I don't even want to... boy, do I hope he was having safe sex, because otherwise he was just
Will Chamberlain is probably smiling up in heaven as we speak.
And Magic Johnson.
Exactly. Wow, jeez. Well, I wish the punishment would have been stiffer, no pun intended. Oh. And I wish that he would have more morals and more... and
fewer partners.
A little more self-respect would have got a long way.
I wish the judge would have taken it seriously.
Well, yes,
this is not a serious sentence.
Well, no, it's not. That's a laughable sentence. And
it's a serious crime, though. He could have done 5 years in prison.
One more thing that made me laugh, speaking of laughable things going on, mob boss files $10 million prison ping pong lawsuit.
Hey, man. He'd been locked up for only 3 years, and he needs to make money somehow.
Yeah,
all right?
Yeah, I guess. But really, dude? I mean, this guy, if you look at the pictures, does not look like he's in ping pong playing form, okay?
No, but his nickname is Tommy Shots, so maybe he is. I don't know.
Tommy needs to get his shots, all right? Because he's clearly crazy.
So Thomas, you know what? This is I don't know how to pronounce this last name. Gioeli?
We'll just call him Gambino. There you go. He's part of the Gambino crime syndicate.
No, call him G.
Yeah, the G-man.
He wants $10 million from the federal government over a ping pong injury. So he used to be a high-ranking member of the Colombo crime family.
Oh.
And he's suing over an injury during a game at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, according to papers. He says that he slipped on a wet floor while playing a game.
Oh, no.
And he fractured a kneecap.
Oh, and that's worth $10 million. That judge is going to look at him.
He'll never play in the Olympics.
No, he's done for. My career was cut short. Damn you, prison. Damn you. No, but the judge, if he's... assuming he doesn't draw the judge from the last story, he's not going to see $10, let alone $10 million.
No, well, I mean, his suit are in. So, like, he actually based the suit on something kind of smart, right? Because the floor was wet due to leaky pipes in the prison. So he said, hey, you know what? The prison was negligent because the employees ignored the complaints about a leaky pipe. You owe me money. But the federal government said, if you play ping pong, that comes with risks.
It does. They're right. It does come with some risk.
You could put an eye out.
You could put an eye out.
I'll have you know. Actually, I have another story. I'll keep this one quick. One of my really good friends, who's my co-editor and co-author on the Encyclopedia of Record Producers. He's one of Cleveland's best-known music journalists for I don't even know how long. Very long time. Decades. He's in his early 70s. He is still a state-ranked table tennis player. He plays every day.
Wow.
73.
That's pretty damn good, man. That is great shape.
Think of the eye-hand coordination.
Yeah, it's fast. Ping pong is fast, man.
When you're good, it is super fast.
Now, that is awesome.
I played at a sort of moderate level, so I played against people who were really good. And oh my god, I mean, it is so fast. That's why when you're watching real players like Olympics, that's why they back up so far.
Sure.
'Cause it's coming at you so fast.
Well, I've only played beer pong, so, I mean, that's just me. I mean,
that's slightly different.
That's a lot more fun, in my opinion, but yes.
Well, it's important.
It's very important. Very important. Now, one more of these headlines that really caught me is bank robber gets caught after using ATM card during heist.
Genius!
Okay. Well, okay, so when I didn't even know this. This just started not that long ago where I am. So Bank of America, you come up to the teller, and the teller doesn't even look at you anymore. You know what I mean?
They don't even want to see your face. They're like,
no,
we don't want to see you.
Run your card.
Yeah, you're one of the unwashed masses. Do not gaze upon me.
So he goes up to the teller, and the teller says,
"Don't even breathe in my direction."
Yeah, and the teller says, "Run your card." And he's thinking, okay. So he runs his card, and then he proceeds to rob them.
Wow.
So he runs his card. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me back up here so I absorb this properly. The guy goes up there and says, I'm going to rob you. So the robber, being the genius he appears to be, runs his own ATM card during the heist.
I think that was before he told her he was going to rob her. I think he was trying to establish rapport.
Elvin Lee Neal, you are perhaps one of the dumbest criminals I've ever heard of. And that's saying something.
Very, very bad move. Although at the same time, I'm kind of glad because if he does that while trying to commit what should be a relatively easy crime, I don't think I want him walking around.
No, and hopefully he does not breed. We do not need offspring.
Yeah. When are we going to get back to eugenics?
That would be great.
That's going on right now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Planned Parenthood, right? Isn't that what they do? But I'm joking, of course. I'm joking.
I think that's the inverse. Or is it the converse?
I don't know. Eugenics.
Or is it the perverse?
Who knows?
Or is it the converse?
I'm not even sure anymore. When did we... I just want to get back to selling fetuses. Oh, who did that one?
I don't know. Could we do that? No, I don't think they do that.
Yeah, they did. Remember? They got busted.
Yeah, they did. And they could because technically it was considered property.
I know. That's a racket we should have thought of.
Yeah, I think I'd rather...
There's easier rackets.
There are easier rackets. I'm just saying. Hey.
No pun intended. Too much blood on the hands.
Yeah, good points.
I'm just saying I'm surprised someone hasn't thought of that racket earlier, to be honest.
If you're Hindu, for example, there's an entire list of professions that are prohibited. You will not reach nirvana if you are a butcher and if you are many other things.
So if you're a butcher, which is an honest living, by the way.
Sure.
And they're good people because without them I wouldn't have my T-bone steaks. But Absolutely. If you are a butcher, you're not going to go to heaven?
Well, you're not going to reach nirvana.
Why are you
Hindu.
But if you're only a butcher of one lifetime, what does it matter?
Well, remember, they think cows are sacred.
Well, Yeah, well, true, they do. That is their deity is a cow.
True Hindus, practicing Hindus are vegetarians, so they do not eat meat. So that's why a butcher.
And they cannot, because that is also prohibitive.
Exactly, because who knows who's reincarnated in that sea slug.
That is true. That is true. Well, there was one more headline I'd like to get to now that I stopped the show with the whole fetus selling thing, and the whole room went. Poop.
That was brutal.
That was brutal. Okay, we're all quiet now. Is the 14?
I vote no on that. By the way.
Let's see. A man given 14-year sentence for pimping out 15-year-old.
Yes.
What the hell?
That's the story I was thinking of earlier. Was the I think it was the uncle that was pimping out his 15-year-old niece.
Oh, my Lord.
Wow. That's a failure on many levels.
Do you ever wonder if prostitutes have to fill out a 1099 form at the end of the year?
Well, in Nevada, they do.
That's true. That's in many other countries as well. That it's just automatically taken out. But it's But the thing is, this is not an isolated story.
No, tell us. Go into it.
That's the horrible part.
Well, what happened? Why do you think it's too lenient? What did he get out of the deal? The guy. What was he sentenced to?
He was sentenced to 14 years, and I'm not exactly sure why it seemed like such a lenient charge, because you've also got the false imprisonment there, and I know that in California he would have been hit with the false imprisonment as well, which can carry a 25 to life sentence. But there was that mother that was caught pimping out her 15-year-old daughter at the Super Bowl in 2014.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that.
Well, the thing that's really horrible is that every time, mark my words, every time a Super Bowl lands in your town, in your state,
yes,
there will be a huge influx of prostitutes and pimps.
Good to know. No, you don't say. You mean Minneapolis next year will be full of prostitutes? More than normal?
Oh, way more than normal, because it's big business during the Super Bowl.
I think what you meant to say is every time there's a political convention.
Every time a prostitute comes to town, an angel gets its wings.
Oh, is that what it is? Yes. We just watched that movie. Yep.
God, best movie reference paired with the worst sort of criminal activity. I'll never see it the same again.
It is the oldest profession. It is the oldest profession. I got nothing against them.
Oh, no, I just think it should be regulated so that pimps get out of the game, to be honest, because really, what do they do?
That's right. I believe that because I'm more of a libertarian than anything else, I believe that if people that are consenting adults want to engage in that business transaction, as long as it's regulated and everyone's safe and everyone's happy, I believe it should be legal.
I totally agree with you. The prostitutes that I came across in Amsterdam when I was visiting were no, I did not utilize any prostitutes.
Are you
Thank
sure?
You, for those of you that are wondering. But I was in my early 20s at the time, and I'd never seen anything like that. You know what I mean? People standing in windows in this red light district, and I was so fascinated by it that one of the prostitutes came out. She talked to me for about an hour about her business.
Well, sure, she's probably trying to recruit you.
Well, maybe, but it was
Red,
fascinating.
you can make a lot of money.
She was happy. She used to be a nurse in her former profession, and she said that she got paid more as a legal prostitute.
I would imagine prostitutes can turn pretty good money.
Very, very good. I mean, they get taxed a lot in Amsterdam. Their rate of tax is huge.
Well, that and that universal health care thing they got over there. I mean, that automatically raises taxes huge. Like, people are running around saying, Denmark's the happiest country in the world. No, it's not.
No, they get plus they have to get tested for diseases, I think, once a month.
Yeah, well, I'd want to... that's a given right there in that line of work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, using protection is also mandatory. But they had, all these different regulations, but the girls were safe. They didn't have a pimp taking a cut or beating them up.
But here's the deal, Clarissa. It was told to me that the reason why these laws that we don't necessarily agree with, that you and I think it could be done better, which it could be, are on the books, is for money. It's clientele, the prison system. If you start legalizing these high arrest rate crimes, who's going to be in prison? Nobody. And what do prisons do? They make money. I mean, really, seriously, that was explained by a criminal defense attorney to me just the other day. that really, quite honestly, a lot of these victimless crimes are there only to make money for the state. That's what he was telling me.
So what were the statistics on that?
I have no idea. I have nothing.
Over what period of time? I could argue this.
He didn't. Hey, I'm just relaying what the old attorney told me. I'm not trying to,
I'd love to talk to that person.
A corollary to the legalized prostitution is, of course, something we are actually seeing right now blooming before our very eyes, and that is the legalization of drugs.
Exactly.
So it's very, very similar situation. But you're cutting out the middleman, you're regulating, you're taxing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, in fact, that's up for vote.
Better than a bad, I guess, overall.
It's up for vote here in Minnesota this next November. Yeah, general election, baby. We might be reefer bound before you know it. We got to run to break. When we come back right after the Fox News, we're going to talk with Jeff Mudgett, and, of course, we're going to get into the whole H.H. Holmes and how he's the grandson and all. Don't go anywhere. Be right back right after this.
Fox News Radio. I'm Dave Anthony. President Trump calls intelligence leaks to the media very un-American after a New York Times report on another Russian link.
He claims that the FBI is looking into possible improper contacts that members of the Trump campaign and others connected to them had with Russian officials and specifically Russian intelligence during the election campaign prior to Election Day.
Fox's John Roberts at the White House. The Times story says there's no evidence of collusion or cooperation.
The president tweeting about it all this morning in a real tweet storm, quote, saying, "This Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign."
Republicans want to stop all the intelligence leaking. Democratic Senator Ben Cardin just told Fox,
"Unauthorized leaks, compromising classified information, that cannot be tolerated."
But Cardin wants an independent investigation into Russian interference after NSA advisor Michael Flynn's resignation.
This is not politics. This is about protecting our national security.
But Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy says no way.
They're much more interested in the politics of it than they are actually finding out what happened.
He says Congress is already investigating Russian interference in the presidential campaign. A Russian spy ship has moved now just 30 miles off the coast of Connecticut, but still in international waters. It was first spotted off Delaware's shore yesterday. There's concern at a NATO meeting about a Russian missile. Fox's Simon Owen live in our European bureau.
Dave, the US says Russia has secretly deployed a new cruise missile, potentially violating a treaty dating back to the Cold War. NATO's Secretary General saying if that's happened, it would be a serious concern. This as defense ministers from NATO's 28 member states gather for talks in Brussels. US Defense Secretary Jim Mattis arriving with a message of reassurance.
President Trump has stated he has strong support for NATO.
But he said many NATO allies need to spend more on defense. Dave?
Simon, in a few hours, President Trump will meet with Israel's Prime Minister. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced. Americans bought more stuff that cost more last month. Retail sales rose 0.4% as we shopped and dined out more, though car buying dropped. Inflation rose. Consumer prices were up 0.6%, the most in nearly 4 years. None of that, though, seems to really be affecting stocks much. Fox Business Network's Nicole Petalides live on Wall Street.
Another day of records. We see the Dow up 27 points right now at 20,530. The NASDAQ gaining 7. The S&P right around the unchanged line, but hitting a record, no doubt. We're seeing healthcare, consumer stocks, technology also moving higher on the heels of our Fed Chair Janet Yellen. Yesterday, she provided testimony to lawmakers. Will do the same today and have given an upbeat assessment of the economy. Some of the movers, Procter & Gamble is a winner on the Dow Jones Industrial Average after it reported its quarterly numbers. That's up 3%. Actually on other news, but it's up about 3%, and AIG is lower by 9% on the S&P 500. Dave?
Thank you, Nicole. The price of oil is down slightly, around $53 a barrel. A reason for higher inflation was that gas cost more in January, but it's gone down this month, and AAA's national average for regular is $2.28 a gallon today. America has a new hot dog.
2,800 dogs were entered into this week's Westminster Kennel Club's dog show at New York's Madison Square Garden. Tuesday night, it came down to one.
The best in show at the 141st Annual Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, the German Shepherd Dog.
The call on Fox Sports 1, Rumor, a 5-year-old female shepherd from Wisconsin taking the title. Judge Thomas Bradley III saying she is just magnificent. Rumor becomes only the second German shepherd in the show's 141-year history to win Best of Show. Adrian, an Irish setter, was the runner-up. Jack Callahan, Fox News.
Thousands of workers are voting at Boeing's South Carolina plant today to decide if they want to unionize. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News Radio.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. The only show that'll scare you enough to make you keep coming back, but then you pee yourself, you have to run away. But we're that show. And I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with you,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And we have a great show on tap tonight, don't we, Eric? We
do. It is fascinating, and really the implications, the ramifications are mind-boggling. Bloodstains is the shocking tale of one man's spiritual journey to find his heritage, only to discover his origins are rooted in a nightmare. After inheriting the personal diaries of his great-great-grandfather, Jeff Mudgett discovers that direct ancestor was America's first and most notorious serial killer, Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H.H. Holmes. Holmes was the mass murderer who struck terror into the nation as proprietor of the infamous murder castle stalking the streets of Chicago during the 1893 World's Fair. During his incarceration awaiting execution well over a century ago, Holmes admitted killing 27 innocent victims, but evidence the author unearths indicates dozens, even hundreds more victims are likely. From his investigations, Jeff Mudgett learns that Holmes' reign of terror was worldwide and not limited to Chicago or even the U.S. Based upon never-before-revealed historical data, Jeff pieces together a dynamic and extraordinary puzzle, including the strong possibility that Holmes was also Jack the Ripper. Welcome to the program, Jeff Mudgett.
Hey, Joel, Eric, and Dr. Cole, thank you very much. This is a real honor. I've listened to you before, and many a time I thought, man, I would enjoy being on this show with those three.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the kind words and the checks in the mail, my friend. But how did a mild-mannered, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were, at least at one time, a practicing attorney. And how does a mild-mannered attorney handle it, and how did you find out, rather, that you were related to H.H. Holmes? Not just a killer, but the serial killer. The first one, the archetype, the big daddy, the one that makes Hannibal Lecter look like a little twit.
Actually, Hannibal Lecter was created from Holmes himself. The author of Silence of the Lamb told me that at a party once in Hollywood. So
very cool, very cool.
Side, but I found out at a family dinner party when I was 40 years old. Quite frankly, guys, I knew I was different. I knew the family was different. We didn't have any killers or criminals in our family, but we all struggled with things. And one family dinner party, my grandmother, who was convinced we were related to Robert E. Lee and had spent quite a few dollars with genealogical societies trying to prove it, finally came clean to the family and had admitted that these genealogical associations had told her to let sleeping dogs lie, that it wasn't going to be Robert E. Lee. Yeah. So my grandfather, who was a very stoic, quiet man, was sitting listening. And I describe in the book how maybe he and I had had 2 or 3 conversations my entire life, but, he was very set aside.
Wasn't exactly conversationalist, is what you're saying. Wasn't exactly conversationalist.
No. And quite frankly, I didn't like the man. He was a fisherman. He used to go on the weekends, and I, as a little boy, would have done anything to have gone fishing with my grandfather, and he never invited me once. So,
wow. Man.
Yeah. Well, but in Bloodstains, I explain why that happened, and at the end explain how he really was a good man. He was just looking out for his family, and he was afraid of many things, which, while you three can understand these days from the science we have, and Dr. Clarissa can jump in and help me with this, at the turn of the century, when, the papers were calling H.H. Holmes the devil, my grandfather had a tough life. And he ran away and hid from it. So at that dinner party, he finally had enough, stood up, admitted that his grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, was the killer, and that he stormed out of the room, but only after stating that name will never be mentioned in this house again. And so, as you can imagine, that dinner party went silent, and we looked around trying to find answers, and finally my brother and I just asked for pumpkin pie to try to get away from it. But
did you stop and say, how about them Yankees? Something to break the, all that tension that must have been in the room. And of course, you being a normal thinking, rational human being has this dropped in your lap out of nowhere. What was your first feelings on that?
Can we talk? Can we come clean? Because basically, I thought it was bullshit.
Yeah, I would too. I'd be like, hey, yeah, right. I'm also related to Elvis. Come on, Grandma.
Yeah. And I kind of like the idea of Robert E. Lee better. And so I went home and was trying to set it aside. And quite frankly, Dr. Clarissa, I couldn't. It started dominating my life, the thought that evil man was why I was here on the earth. And, that his conscious decisions were made up the foundation for who I was. And all of a sudden, my admitted idiosyncrasies, I was a successful attorney in California, but, I had a reputation as being, hot-tempered, those type of things. I know my imagination often ran wild, and those things, when all of a sudden they're given, an identity, it started quite quickly to bother me.
But I totally understand what you're saying, and I think a lot of people, that's why they feel maybe a need to change their name. People go into hiding after, even like Casey Anthony's family was hounded by the press mercilessly, which must have been what had happened, when your grandfather was young. But at the same time, like I've talked about this on the show before, Joel and Eric, and I believe this firmly. This is going to sound weird. Not everything about psychopathy or being a psychopath is negative. It is not all bad. And people, obviously, in the case where people are getting murdered, yes, it is bad. But the psychopathy in general, or having less empathy and, a different way of going about life, is not necessarily a negative thing. So I think people need to kind of adjust their opinions of how they look at that.
Well, Holmes wasn't.
Can I agree with that? Because I agree completely, because that not all bad part about having that same temperament and focus that he must have had when he would conduct his experiments in the basement of the murder castle, I had found that it made my legal career very successful as well.
I totally agree. I've always said that if you can push like a psychopath, they don't have the same fear response. And that's very well documented over many, many brain scans over many, many years, that the fear response in psychopaths is almost non-existent. And that allows them, the ones that don't go bad into the negative side of society, it allows them to do extraordinary things like open heart surgery, like brain surgery, like racing cars, like fighting,
hosting radio shows, really
missions.
Anything. Yeah.
Well, anything that requires you to get past that fear.
Well, I just want to throw in there. He likes him. I just want to throw in there. H.H. Holmes is far from a dumb man. He got his doctorate from Michigan. He was really, quite honestly, at his own trial, and we'll get into that deeper, but he was his own attorney, and some of the legal tactics he used at his own trial are still in use today. They teach them to attorneys.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
So I mean that he was extremely smart, but his downfall, my opinion, was greed. That was the thing that tripped him up the most. And like I said,
it is for a lot of
get into that.
psychopaths, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and of course, Jeff, you find out that you're related to HH. Now, did you go a step further and do DNA testing or do anything that would, in your mind, because I would need proof for me. I wouldn't take it just Grandma telling me the story. I needed to see it in black and white. I'm sure you're the same way.
Oh, yeah, but then you got to remember, my grandmother had just spent over $20,000 hiring these genealogical associations, so as soon as my grandfather storms out of the room, my brother walks over and grabs the volume. We open the pages up, and shazam, there is Herman Webster Mudgett.
Wow. And of course, you all knew who he was before you heard this, right? It wasn't like, well, who's this guy? And you looked up on the internet and go, oh my God. You already knew, you were familiar with H.H. Holmes, I'm assuming anyway.
Well, but the family had fudged it. We were led to believe that he was an Arkansas horse thief who had been hung by the neck until dead.
Well, he's hung by the neck till dead. I mean, that part.
Hey,
but
not everybody reads serial killer books for fun. I mean, I think that's just me, right?
I'm sure it's not just you, Clarissa, but you may be a subset of the general population. I mean, it depends when this happened. I know you, Jeff, you said this is when you were 40, but these days, people who pay much attention to pop culture do know who he is because of the book, very successful. Devil in the White City, a forthcoming movie, the fact that there have now been so many characters, including just recently, a season and a half ago on American Horror Story, characters based on the hotel itself, I guess, was really based on the murder hotel. So he has been around a lot more. I think if you would have asked me 30 years ago if I knew who he was, I don't think I would have known the name. I might have known the character, but I don't think I would have known his name.
Oh, yeah. And then you have Timeless, which is using him repeatedly lately. You also have, I think there's 3 cable shows about him coming out this season. It's a tidal wave. And from what I understand from my associates in L.A., the movie that Scorsese and DiCaprio are making, which they are going to attempt to define pure evil with, it's going to be the most expensive epic movie ever made.
Now, do you guys get any royalties when they use his likeness or they use his name? Because I have a funny lineage myself. My grandfather founded the city of Sturgis, South Dakota. And whenever my family's likeness is used, his likeness, our family gets royalties from that.
I don't know. I think Herman was a public figure because of the execution and the trial. He was the O.J. Simpson trial at the time. It was carried by every major newspaper, not only in America, but also in London. So I doubt that the family would be entitled to any royalties for that. I know they have contacted me because they're having trouble with their script and storyline for the movie because, the Devil in the White City, Eric Larson, who I've met a couple of times, wrote a fantastic book. But it's a book about 2 subjects. It's about an architect who builds the World's Fair, and then it's about Holmes because Eric knew that his book wouldn't have sold if it had just been about this architect, so he juiced it up with the chapters once in a while about Holmes and the murder castle. And they're trying to figure out ways of tying the 2 together. And, Tom Cruise had it for a while. He loved the story, and he couldn't get a script made. And then DiCaprio bought it from him, who Warner Brothers had it, then now Paramount has it, and now I guess they're dedicated to making it come out. I think we're looking at about 2 years, and then it'll be out. But I tell you what, I can't wait to see what they come up with.
Another thing I wanted to note really quick, just in case you guys are wondering about royalties, just because I use a lot of stuff. If it's written before 1900, which, as we all know, H.H. Holmes' own account was written before 1900, it is considered public domain.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Yep. See, like
in America, it is public domain.
Yeah. See, like my lineage, my family is like the settling of the area, Sturgis and that and this, and so that is considered a little bit different because it's military history. And it's a historical fact of, in fact, my grandfather rubbed elbows with Butch Cassidy's Sundance Kid, for crying out loud. And so, which is kind of cool when you read his journal and he says, yeah, those guys are a couple weirdos in old language, but he ran into them quite frequently because they were in the Dakotas for a while. But that being said, having this as your lineage, it sounds like you really come to grips with it. But one thing that, is sticking in my head and sticking in my craw is, and of course, as a devil's advocate, because this is what I've been hearing all week after I announced you're coming on, is how the heck is H.H. Holmes Jack the Ripper? Where are these meet in the middle? Because court records have Holmes in the States during the Ripper murders, unless I'm completely wrong and misread it. And I would like to hear your thoughts on that, shed some light on that.
Oh, no, there is that gap in time when the 5 Ripper murders were being conducted. We can run Holmes's his appearance or his the fact that he was in Chicago right up to those times, and then right after he's back in Chicago. We've gone through the passenger lists on the Cunard Line ships that went back and forth. The difficulty with that is, of course, Holmes had at least 31 different aliases, and he was very using them all. But we have a company going through all the passenger lists with the signatures on there, and we're going through each, and I've got some financial backing helping me with those. And then, have any of the 3 of you watched my TED Talk where I actually swore the audience in as my grand jury?
Yes, I did. I watched that. It was very interesting.
But how did I have to focus on that for a second. I don't just want to brush past it because I think it's important. How did he, if he was not in Chicago in 1888, and you're right, I mean, the records are kind of sketchy during 1888. I mean, he confessed to being both in Chicago and in West Virginia in his book and in his confession in 1888, but he didn't say exactly when, right? So when he made the journey from New York, like did you mention the ship that he was on, part of the Cunard Line? How did he get to London? How did that happen?
How did he get to London?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he took a ship. I think the ship that he rode over is called the Etruria. Mm-hmm. And we have an outfit going through that passenger list. Cunard's been very helpful, and we think we can show that he has a signature on the list. And then the time we spent in London with the production company I'm working with, we went through each piece of possibility, because if you've seen the TED, you realize my theory, my main point is based on the fact that I think I can prove that he wrote the Dear Boss letter.
Yeah, because that's the definitive letter. I guess I was just wondering specifically how he had gotten to London, because the Etruria never docked in London. It went from New York to Liverpool, which is on the other side of England. So how did he get from Liverpool to London? And there's all of this. How long would that have taken?
Well, hold on. Then I also heard, doing some research, Clarissa, that docked at Southampton.
Not during 1888.
Southampton's what I'm.
That's just what it was through my own looking documents. But you could be completely right. I'm just saying that's what I read. But Liverpool is also thrown out there. Which is a Liverpool or a Southampton? Where did it dock at?
Well, Dr. Cole, why would that be a relevant issue? He could have gotten to London from either one.
Oh, for sure. I was just thinking, because in the book, you talk specifically about him bringing somebody with him and having all the trunks of medical equipment and things with him. And that's a lot to move around at that time. So to get from Liverpool, it's quite the journey. I'm wondering if there would be train records or something like that.
Well, and you know, I need to come a little clean with your audience to do you all the favor of Bloodstains. To me, I classified it as fiction based on a true story because, quite frankly, there are just too many gaps that I filled in using my imagination.
And I caught that, by the way, just to also full disclosure, you're absolutely correct. It was classified as fiction before anyone gets too, oh my God, he's not perfectly to the nuts on that, that date. It was classified as fiction. You're absolutely correct.
You know, and I struggled with my manager and my lawyer over that for quite a while, and I finally just made the decision that's what I was going to state because I just can't agree with some of the. It's like The Devil in the White City, all right? Mr. Larson wrote an incredible book, but the chapters he wrote about H.H. Holmes, he admitted in the footnotes at the end of the book, were made up. But the book was called nonfiction, and that's that old Truman Capote and cold blood theory where if you come clean at the end of a book, you can say that it's nonfiction. Well, I never agreed with that, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's a little that's teetering on the line. You know, I would never do that.
Literary nonfiction. Yeah, it's like Tom Wolfe, and it's a whole category of.
But Truman Capote was like kind of the father of true crime genre, so it's kind of hard to hate him.
Well, you're right. I mean, he was one of the first. Yeah. You're crushing on Capote right now. That's totally cool.
Well, no, just because the true crime genre started, and I mean, I would think that Jeff, you would kind of be into because you can't go back in time, right? But I mean, it's a stupid question, but like, if you could, would you? I mean, would you want to talk to your ancestor, like face to face, and ask him, what was going through his mind, or do you feel like you know?
Wow, I've done maybe 300 shows, not as professional as this one, but I've done coast to coast 2 or 3 times. I've done quite a few shows, and that's the first time I've ever been asked that. Would I want to sit down with Herman and discuss his murder castle and the way he abused innocent young ladies, how he was perhaps and will be within 2 years the definition of evil with a face, and that's going to be my ancestor. I tell you what, I was having lunch. Sorry, I'll jump the subject a little bit. I was having lunch with my father today, and my father is a Navy fighter pilot, flew in Vietnam, medals, a very honorable soldier. And he asked me, he said, son, when this movie comes out, are they going to be using Mudgett or Holmes? Wow. And I said, Dad, well, I got to tell you, they're going to be using both. And you're going to have to live with that. You're not going to be able to run away from that. And he said, okay, I'll get ready for it. But it's, your question, Clarissa, is, if you studied, did either of you get to read that Harper's article I sent you?
Yes.
That's the most incredible piece of literature about this monster ever written. And if your audience, wants to pull that up, you just Google Harper's Magazine and H.H. Holmes. It was written in the 40s, and you'll see what a monster he was. And why my family at the turn of the century they ran away from the East Coast and started new lives in California. But now with the Wi-Fi and the Google and all those things, there's no running away from the name Mudgett anymore. And it's going. The agent that I talked to about it told me that they anticipate 4 billion people will see and know the Scorsese DiCaprio movie when it comes out.
Yeah. Well, I would totally believe that. And I mean, because he's got quite a reach. Hollywood has a huge reach. And hopefully, Hollywood doesn't always do things justice. I really, truly hope that Hollywood does do this particular story justice. Not only, I guess, more or less for the victims as well. You know what I mean? Because that's another thing we'll bring up after the break here is we'll talk about some of the victims and whether they've reached out to you and whether you've talked with them and things like that and what has transpired in your life since you found out that you are indeed H.H. Holmes' grandson. I mean, that's a huge thing to be burdened with, but at any age. So don't go anywhere, everyone. We'll be right back right after this. Hey, if you're catching this edition of After Hours AM on podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to After Hours AM. And for all you iTunes listeners, make sure you rate and review After Hours AM.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
Sure, when it comes to sex, you're responsible, but now they're marketing big-size condoms, and frankly, you'd need a belt and suspenders to keep one on. Well, don't be embarrassed. Hot Dog House now offers regular-size condoms with big-size package names.
Bob, you dropped something from your wallet.
Oh, my God, it's
Here. Oh, the Hindenburg.
Only kind I use.
Order your regular-size condoms from Hot Dog House with names that give you confidence. The Jolly Mean Giant, Cruise Missile, Pikes Peak, Superdome. Only you'll know the real story. But for a while.
So, why is there a munchkin riding in the Hindenburg?
It's your ideas, work, and creativity that make it your yard. At ACE, we're here to help with hoses and sprinklers to nurture growth, gardening tools for the shape of good things to come, even the right fertilizer and bug killers to make the grass a little greener. You'll find it all now at ACE, your place, with everything you need for your yard, plus helpful advice, almost like we're right there. ACE,
The helpful place.
You're listening to After Hours AM, the best in alternative talk radio. Got a question, comment, guest suggestion, or just want to say hi? Contact us at afterhoursam@gmail.com. That's afterhoursam@gmail.com. Want to call the show and be interactive? That's easy. The number is 612-326-6874. Again, the number is 612-326-6874. And thank you for listening.
Oh, no more Yankee, my Wanky. The donga need food. And welcome back to this edition of After Hours AM. But I want to start this
edition, this second part of the show off with this. I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer. Not more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing. I was born with the evil one standing as my sponsor beside the bed where I was, wow, man, unsheared to the world. And he has been with me since. H. Holmes.
That's pretty self-aware, I'd say.
That is, to me, that's a self-aware person going, yeah, I'm evil. Yep, I'm not crazy. I'm evil.
I have a friend who wrote the memoirs of Herman, and his name is John Borowski. If you want to look him up, but he compiled the writings, all the different things that Holmes had put together. And if you want to have a scary couple of evenings, pick up Borowski's book and then read what Holmes would say about murder, about killing, about evil. And you're talking about not only perhaps one of the highest IQs that ever graduated with a medical degree from University of Michigan, but someone who's freaking close to Shakespeare. He's an incredible writer. I'm telling you, it's going to astound the world once that movie comes out and the name is all over. But his material, and I tried to include some of his best quotes in my book. And I got to tell you, the show I'm working on now, they've discovered how interesting it is to use Herman's own words depicting each particular scene. And I got to tell you, I think it's going to amaze people when it comes out in a couple of months.
I think so too. And he started out, for a lot of people, they say he was a bullied child. I'm sure that's true because most of us at one point or another was bullied. But he was, the story goes, and I'm sure you can say whether this is real or fictional or what it is, that they basically they had a skeleton in the classroom and they teased little Herman with that. But Herman, he wasn't scared. He was intrigued by it. And which most children would scream, yell, and go, oh my God, that's the scariest thing ever. He really had joy in that. And that's a little disturbing.
There's one particular event where he was, as a young boy, he was forced to touch a cadaver. Mm-hmm. And when I researched, hoping, and the doctor can jump in and help me with this, hoping that this could have been one of the things that changed his life, quite frankly, I wasn't able to determine that it even scared him a bit.
It's the thing that's so rough with this, and this is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this will offer any comfort or not, being around it as long as I have been. Meeting somebody that is truly what we would, I guess, term a psychopath is pretty rare, right? And I'm guessing that HH probably did qualify for that. And it seems to be, at least in my research anyway, that people are born that way, that it is not the fault of the parents. It's not because they had some experience that all of a sudden turns them evil. They're just born without that fear that the rest of us have to everything, to all the normal things that kids have fear to, like a cadaver. That would have freaked. Oh my gosh. I remember the one funeral they took me to as a kid. Mistake, man. Oh my God. It scared me so bad. And because that's a normal reaction, but people that have this psychopathy, we don't know what it is. We don't know what causes it. All I can tell you is that from all the exposure I've had, it's not something caused by how they were raised. I mean, Jeff, what do you think? Based on what you've seen.
I'm right there with you, but I'd like to take it a step further and have you answer a question for me, if you don't mind. Okay. The psychopath thing, I understand. Although the experts that I continue to run into, I have so many that disagree regarding sociopath, psychopath, and all the different characterizations. I'd like to know, where does the word and the definition of evil fit into that psychopath thing? Is there a thing such as evil? Was this man born evil or not?
That is such a tough question. I mean, do I believe in evil as sort of like a a moral concept or just as a concept in general. I mean, it's weird because since I'm a scientist sort of by trade, it almost makes me physically go, no, don't say it. But I do believe that there is such a thing as evil, and I don't know how it works its way into some people. I do know that I've seen it. I do know that it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And I don't know how it gets there.
I believe that there is evil, and we have a ton of emails and, of course, blasts on Facebook hitting us right now. And one of the questions that kind of piqued my interest here by one of our many, many listeners, Daniel, he was curious of, after being sentenced to death, was H.H. Holmes, he requests to be buried in concrete. Is that factual? Was he actually buried in concrete?
You know, that's something I have to be careful of. I would love to come back on your show after the network releases our product.
Sure.
So I called the boss yesterday in preparation for the show today, and I said, hey, I'd love to be able to discuss the show with the three hosts. And he said, well, you can allude to it, but don't mention any names and the networks and all those things. But one of our episode that I can't wait to see how it turns out is we're going to be able to prove to the world whether he was buried in that concrete or not.
Good enough answer for me.
Wait, when does this air? What? No, I'm excited. I want to know.
I think you're going to see the network release the tease probably next month, and then I would think the first episode will be maybe the second half of April.
Interesting. One more quick email, and this is from Louise. She would like to know if it is true that the newspaper actually papers confession a sum of $7,500.
I tell you what, your audience they've got this subject down. That's absolutely true. And that's one of the reasons we've dug so deep into that part of it, because the Hearst Corporation paid Herman $7,500 or $8,500 in cash to give this interview that they would write about on the front pages of all the major papers at the time. And that cash was used in suspicious ways, which at the end of Bloodstains, I theorize that Holmes used to escape his execution, and that when we're able to determine from DNA testing who was actually buried, I'll be able to prove at the end of Bloodstains that Holmes escaped execution.
Well, one more quick question, being that they're on the roll, our listeners. Kevin would like to know, was H.H. truly married to three women at one time?
Oh yeah, at least. He was one of the great womanizers of all time. He had, I think, 5 wives, and I think hundreds of mistresses. There's a great story about the Philadelphia, I think it was the Inquirer at the time, which was one of the nation's major papers, wrote about when he was convicted. The jury came back in and announced they found him guilty, and the judge decided that he was going to be hanged. When they led him out, the women that were married to him at the same time, and obviously only my great-great-grandmother was married to him legally.
Yeah.
Legal wasn't something Herman worried about.
No, that was a passing inconvenience for him.
Yeah. These women stood up. They knew who each other were, and they had crocodile tears rolling down their faces. Their man was led off to prison.
Wow.
And that was the front page.
And they were
front page of the Nation.
They were good-looking women too. I mean, really, and everybody
slouches,
that describes them, the eyewitness accounts. I mean, these were not like they weren't hurting if they were looking around.
They're hot, is what you're saying. They're
looking. Come on.
All right, Mudgett. Hey, doing all right.
Hey, Jeff. This is all.
Great question.
These are great questions from listeners. We always do, and it just shows how provocative all this is and how fascinating that we're getting that kind of input. I, for myself, just because I fear running out of time because it always goes so quickly. We're actually down to the final 17 minutes. Can you run us through, because I really want to try to understand this. What is your line of reasoning from H.H. Holmes to Jack the Ripper? How did you make that connection, and how strongly do you feel about it?
Well, I'll tell you, when I presented at the TED, I was contacted by the network who wanted to buy the rights to present that theory to the nation and across the Atlantic too, in England, so in the UK. Then when I explained to them how I had got from point A to point B, and then I think established. Okay, when I used to practice law, criminal law, there's a difference, and the doctor can help me with this. There's a difference between probable cause and beyond a reasonable doubt, obviously, and all three of you know that. When I talked at the TED, I explained to the audience, listen, I could establish probable cause to name Holmes as a suspect for the 5 murders. I have enough for that. Now, I don't have enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was Jack the Ripper. Mm-hmm. The network contacted me and said, "Listen, we think we want to back you up with the the funding and the expertise, and we want to try to put this together and explain that we think we've gone farther than that, and that's what our show is about, which will be airing in April."
Okay.
Aha.
Well, we'd love to have you back on right after the show airs, if you're willing.
No, of course, I'd love to come back on. I tell you what, I want. Although you got to make me a promise, okay?
Okay. What's the promise?
I'm not an actor. I'm not a good-looking dude. I'm an old bald guy, and I got to tell you, I still don't know why they wanted me on the show in front of the cameras. So don't make fun of me when I come back.
No, we won't. I'm bald and I'm old, so hey.
I was going to say, wait a minute, my boyfriend's bald.
Bald is beautiful.
Yeah, man, bald is great.
Yeah, don't you know all the chicks dig the bald guys?
I prefer to think of myself as receding.
Receding very quickly.
I'm not receding. I'm gone.
Yeah. Well, quite honestly, talking with you now, we got to get to one piece of really interesting. You went to what's left of the murder castle. Mm-hmm. That is now, of course.
That is fascinating.
Now, of course,
there's something left. I'm shocked by.
Well, now it's now a post office.
But there's a basement, right?
Let me get rid of that.
Yeah.
But yes, there is a basement that is there, of course. And how much of the murder castle is still intact?
If you pull up on Haunted History, the Murder Castle, a show by History Channel that they filmed me walking through the basement for them with three film crews behind me, and there's still 2 of his original tunnels that he created in case the police ever raided him while he was in operation, and he could escape to the other side of the street and out the alley and be gone. He never had to use them. But the original brick is still there, and I've got to tell you, the first time when we went to the post office, my friend Kim and we talked the administrator into letting us go down into the basement, which was barricaded, because the employees at the post office thought it was haunted. They never went down into the basement.
Mm-hmm. It probably is, to be honest with you. You can't have that much death without something hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, remember that Harper's article, that one of my favorite quotes of all time is if ever the paranormal is going to be proven, it's going to be at 63rd and Wallace, the murder castle.
I would agree. I mean, but there's some left. Now, you went down there, just to speed it up here because we only got a few minutes. You went down there, but you had a seizure, didn't you, down there? And you were never, just so the audience knows, you were not epileptic before that. But
there are many people in my life who think the son of a bitch gave me epilepsy after I started researching who he really was. And I don't know if I've gone that far. I know I never had any symptoms of epilepsy before. My grandfather told the family the secret. And when I had the seizure in the basement, and I tried to write about it in the book, and it's not an easy subject to depict, but
no.
He tried to talk me into murdering my best friend while we were down in the basement.
So he was, he was
his presence.
Yeah, his presence was influencing you and trying to get into your head to murder your best friend. Wow, man. I mean, does that not, because you are a relative, his blood to some extent courses through your veins. Does that not worry you that he may at one point come back and in spirit form and try to maybe inhabit you? I mean, I've heard of it before. Does that ever worry you?
I was worried about that for quite a while, but I got to tell you, when I finished the book and walked away from it, finally having put it down onto paper, what I'd had in my head for so many years, he left me alone. And I'm just, glad I haven't been visited in a long time. And I've been to neurologists, the best ones in the world. I take medicine for my epilepsy, and they'll tell you, they could come on the show with me and they tell you, well, what Jeff experienced having Mr. Holmes try to cause him to do something criminal like that is totally normal within the nature of an epileptic condition. And I say bullshit, because in my visions in the basement, when I saw the way the basement was in operation at the time with torture racks and acid baths and furnaces, and when we had a professional architect put the correct positions down when we had it done professionally, it was exactly the way the visions I had.
Very interesting. That is bizarre and cool and scary all at the same time.
By the way, that episode, your Murder Castle episode of Haunted History, is actually available on the History Channel website. So that is cool. And the first thing you see is the back of your head.
Well,
check this out. It's available. That episode is available for view on the website until December 31st, 2099.
Really? Well, that's good.
So you better hurry up.
You better hurry up. Don't waste any time. One more quick subject matter that was actually kind of a source of a little bit of discussion between me and the listeners. You kind of allude in your book, and of course, again, some of this was fictionalized because you had to fill in the gaps. You don't believe that H.H. was dead. He was hanged to death. Do you believe he was killed right there? Or do you believe that he survived beyond 1896?
When we're able to prove it, and we will, I'm fairly convinced, as I state at the end of my book, listen, if it's him, I'll apologize to the world, but I'm convinced that we're going to be able to determine, through DNA testing, that he wasn't executed that day.
Okay. Oh, well, I think I want to say that you kind of referred to 1960, that he was around up until 1960, unless I'm completely wrong, and I'm quoting you wrongly, but is that one of the, what you kind of allude to, that he was around all the way up to 1960?
Yeah, in the book I write about an event which I can't prove happened, but I'm fairly convinced that he visited my mother pushing me in a baby stroller.
Wow. Because that would have made him...
Wasn't he born in 1860?
1861, May 16th, 1861. That would have made him 99 years old.
Oh, and he was a specialist. His hobby was hormonal science and longevity. That's what he was interested most in.
Very interesting. So he wanted to live forever.
That's what he wanted to do.
Well, geez, and what a life to keep leading then, being a serial killer. And, of course, he was never one that shied away from notoriety. And do you think that the reason why he left you alone is he's starting to get notoriety once again in the public eye?
That's a great question, and I've struggled with that for years. And when you look back at the wives that he had, we've really only found evidence that he murdered one. He let the others alone. He even visited my great-great-grandmother, Clara, in New Hampshire, and asked her for a divorce, and she refused him. And, I describe how he stood outside pondering what to do. And Doctor, you can jump in, and we all know what he was thinking, as another solution rather than divorce to his problem. And he allowed her to live, and he did the same with his other wives. So there was a part of him, I don't know how to describe it here, a man who killed children and then would stuff them into trunks.
Yeah.
But but he
always wondered. I was going to ask you. I don't know. I don't know if you know this type of information, but did your great grandmother hold a grudge against him? Do you know how she felt about him?
No, and the research that I get to work with these geniuses and the stuff they're coming up with. We now, and I'll leave you guys with this, which I haven't discussed this on any show yet, but we now know that when he escaped, and the manhunt for Holmes after he had to abandon the murder castle makes Bonnie and Clyde look like JV time. Okay, This was the hunt across America. And he escaped for a period of time back to New Hampshire, and he stayed with my great-great-grandmother again, and which was quite shocking to my family because we didn't know that Grandma Clara had allowed him back in her life.
Well, Jeff, maybe it's love. Maybe they loved each other.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm not. Psychopaths are not incapable of that. I've always wondered.
Maybe that's why he didn't murder her, because he truly loved this woman.
Loved her, yeah.
And that could be a good answer as any. Unless we somehow figure a way to contact Herman Webster directly and go, by the way, why'd you let her live? I would assume he loved her enough to marry her at one point and have children with her, or one child, and that I hope anyway there was enough human being inside of him that would stop him from murdering his own wife and child. And that's why you're talking to us today, because he didn't do that.
You know what? That's why I'm talking with you today.
Yeah, exactly. But Jeff, where can people get your book? Where can they grab a copy of this and read it for themselves?
If they'd like a print copy, they can go to bloodstainsthebook.com. And if they'd like an ebook at Amazon, we do quite well on Amazon now. And but I like to sign my print book if someone's interested in having a signature. So if like I say, bloodstainsthebook.com, and then keep an eye on the on television, because I got to tell you, I can't wait for the world to see the work that this production company is doing, putting together a really great series.
I can't wait to watch it. I know that Eric and Clarissa can't wait to watch it either, and we really look forward to seeing what you unearth, so to speak, about his burial. Was he truly buried because they feared him so much under 10 feet of concrete?
I heard he was in Grant's tomb.
Well, as he came off the scaffolding, this is what was said. As he came off the scaffolding, the body went into the coffin and immediately was covered in concrete, the coffin.
Wow.
And that was so no autopsy could be done. He had hired Pinkerton guards to watch the body, which was then led off with a mule team out to Holy Cross Cemetery outside of Philadelphia, and Yeadon, Philadelphia. And the 10-foot hole, he had bought 2 plots. The 10-foot hole, the coffin was lowered in, and then that was covered in concrete.
Wow, that's a lot of concrete. Well, Jeff, again, we're running short on time. I hate to shuffle off because I'd love to talk further about that. But Jeff Mudgett, everybody, thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on the show. And on behalf of myself, of course, it's Clarissa, and then we got Eric over there. We're signing off, but tomorrow night, tune in because we're going to have Mr. Stephen LaChance coming on, and we're going to talk all about the spooky and sinister and scary, well, the Exorcist house, man. We're going to talk about that tomorrow night, so you not want to hear that one. So until next time, take care of each other, love each other, and keep listening.
Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.